What's going on, guys? This is Foresight Capital, and today we're going to take a look at three stocks that ARK Invest has been buying very heavily over the past month that have not yet reached new all-time highs or new one-year highs, meaning that there's a lot of potential left to still earn some nice returns in these stocks if you're bullish on them. A lot of times when you're buying ARK Invest stocks, you've missed the run-up and they've been buying the dips and buying the bottoms on these stocks and earning really outsized returns to the tune of over 100% annually on some of their ETFs. But each of these stocks still have some room to run to reach new all-time or one-year highs. So I really hope that this video brings you value, and if it does, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing because it really helps this channel reach more people, and I'll be making more ARK Invest content in the future. So we're going to be taking a look at lucidtracking.com today, which I'm not affiliated with, but I think it's a really great service if you're interested in all things ARK Invest because it lays out their various ETF suites, who they're buying, who they're selling, and overall weightings in a very easy to read fashion, which is easy to share with friends or make your own videos about if that's something that you're interested in. However, you can find all of this information for free on ARK Invest's website or with simple Google searches. So we're going to take a look today at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals first, which is ticker symbol REGN. They're a very large biotechnology company with a $52 billion market cap, and they're currently held within the ARKG ETF, which is ARK Invest's premier genomics ETF and one of the top returning ETFs that they have. Now we can see that ARK Genomics actually held quite a few shares, 1.9 million, back in the middle of October before selling them off and starting pretty much fresh with about 13,000 shares. And over the past 2 trading months, they've slowly crept up that amount until recently when they started buying a fair amount of shares, increasing their overall position to 450,000 shares and over $215 million invested. Now, if we scroll back here to the beginning of November and the end of October, we can see that the total weight of Regeneron within the ARKG ETF was about 1/4%. And despite the declining price since then, which we'll talk about in just a moment, they've been buying so many shares that they've actually increased the overall weight within the ARKG ETF of Regeneron to 2.71%. Despite reaching pretty much new lows today. So if we go ahead and pull up their one-year chart here, we'll be able to see that they've been trading as high as $664.64 back in the end of July and are now trading at about $483 as of close of business today. So that's a very substantial decline, and obviously this is a fairly expensive stock, but it's one that potentially has a lot of upside. I'm assuming that if ARK Invest is buying this many shares and increasing the overall weighting of Regeneron within the ARKG, which is one of their highest performing portfolios, that they feel there's going to be a turnaround at some point in the not so distant future and potential for some outsized returns. So we've got basically almost $200 per share upside back to recent highs and then potentially a breakout above that. I don't necessarily have a price target for this stock, but it's one that's very interesting because it's trading so far off of recent highs that there's a lot of potential upside for this stock, and they're actually seeming to buy the dip and be very bullish on this stock. We can see that overall it's showing pretty close to oversold, and that's when a lot of investors will start coming in and propping up the stock. Now keep in mind it's a $52 billion company, so we need some larger buyers like ARK Invest who are coming in and investing multiple millions of dollars per day to really keep the price pumped, but it seems that they have a lot of a bullish case for this stock and are potentially looking for it to spike in price in the not so distant future. The next stock that we're going to take a look at actually trades over the counter but is still another big company. Now keep in mind if you're trading on a platform like Robinhood, you may or may not be able to trade this stock, but it's Roche Holdings. And they are a very large pharmaceutical biotechnical company, and we can see here that ARK Invest within the ARKG portfolio has been buying a very substantial amount of Roche Holdings. So we can see here that at the end of November, they held 0 shares, and then starting basically at the beginning of December, they started buying a very substantial number of shares of Roche Holdings, and that's been increased all the way to 5.4 million shares as of December 30th, 2020. If we scroll down here, we can see that very similarly to Regeneron, they've increased the overall weight within the ARCG portfolio to almost 3% and now own $234 million worth of Roche holdings, and they've grown that from under 15 basis points all the way up to nearly 3% of the overall holdings within ARCG portfolio. So if we hop on over to TD Ameritrade here and we pull this up, again, keep in mind, depending on your brokerage, you may not be able to pull this up because they again are trading over the counter. We can see that they're currently trading at about $43.84 and have hit recent highs as high as $48.72. Now this doesn't seem to be a very volatile stock overall, although over the past year they've gone from under $36 per share up to $48. So it's somewhat volatile, but it also trades within a pretty tight range and is volatile within that range. So we can see that realistically it's been trading between about 47 and we'll call it 42 for a good portion of the year before having an ever so slight dip, and is now trading back above $43 per share, above the 50, 200, and 9-period moving averages, all of which are bullish, along with the fact that ARK Invest has enough faith in the company to allocate almost 3% of the overall holdings of the ARCG fund to Roche holdings. And the last stock that we're going to take a look at here is Novartis. Novartis is also a very large biotech pharmaceutical company, and we can see here that they've also been added very heavily within the ARCG portfolio. So they also have about a 2.5% weight within the ARCG portfolio at over $200 million worth of shares. And as of the end of October, ARK Invest held about 350,000 shares and has grown that position to over 2.1 million shares. Sort of the same deal here. ARK Invest was actually buying even when the price dipped, so they started buying at about $85 per share. It dipped to $78 and they still continued buying, and now the price is back up to $94, which is getting very close to 1 year and all-time highs, but not quite there yet. We'll look at that in just a second, but they've increased the overall weighting to over 2.5%, which again seems very bullish for this stock's potential. So the ticker symbol NVS, this is traded on the NASDAQ, so you should be able to find it on most brokerages. And we can see that they've traded as high as $99.84 this year, before having a somewhat large sell-off right around the beginning of the virus, as most stocks did, to $70, and have since then been pretty volatile, but again within a somewhat tight range given that it's a pharmaceutical biotech company, of between $92 per share and we'll call it about $80 per share, with just a couple of days dipping outside of that range. And they're now coming back up to what appears to be potentially testing the 1-year highs. So we've got a very big psychological number here of about $100 per share that potentially bulls could push this stock through, and we've got about 5 to 7% to run up to those recent highs before we start talking about whether or not it can break through $100 per share. So this one is the one that probably has the least amount of upside, at least to highs, but potentially from there, again, who knows where the price will go. I don't necessarily have price targets for any of these stocks. It just seems that there's a little bit of room to run based on where they've traded within the year and how bullish ARK Invest seems to be on these stocks to be willing to allocate over 2% of their total weight in their premier flagship ETF to these 3 different stocks. So let me know down in the comments below which one you're most likely to buy and which one you want to stay away from. Curious to hear your thoughts. I really appreciate you watching to the end, and again, if the video brought you value, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for stopping by, and catch you in the next one.